Hey, everybody. I'm Lisa Campion, and I'm here with my beautiful friend, Jane Bear. And this is the Quantum Mystic podcast. We're doing it live these days. And we would super love to hear your comments. So if you're tuning in live on Facebook, on YouTube, drop your comments in, and we're gonna chat about what you post. So we would really, really love to hear about if you have any questions or any thoughts that come up, or if you just want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. And our topic today, it's such a beautiful one. And we're really talking about you are the mirror and the flame. So we've been kind of on a roll about these universal laws, and this like the universal law of reflection, right? How when we're in relationship with each other, well, really everything in that we're experiencing in the universe is a reflection of who we are, and that means our relationships. So we wanted to talk about relationships. But relationships is part of a spiritual growth process. So, um, like, how are our relationships reflecting all the things that we haven't processed yet? And how do we become? Um, how do we use that to strengthen our beingness instead of kind of getting tossed around in the same relationship drama over and over again? I don't
Mhm.
know. It's such a good topic, isn't it, Jane?
It's such a good topic. And I think it's really on the spiritual path. And first of all, hello, everybody. If you're with us live, thanks for joining. Um, Always so fun to be here with Lisa. And, on the spiritual path, this is sort of like the gut punch. It's like when you realize that every relationship is showing you what you love, what you fear, what you've disowned, like what every little thing about yourself. It's like, oh, I just remember being like, oh, that's brutal, and then
Yeah.
it becomes an opportunity. But
Mhm.
I think it's such an important topic on when we're doing the work of healing ourselves. Um,
Yeah.
That's a good one. It's a good
It's a
one.
good one because we're always, I think we start in our relationship life with it's all your fault, and
Right.
like blame and this sort of blame and complain, and we don't know
Victimhood.
victimhood, we don't know how to get our needs met. It kind of is like a a big power struggle over who gets their needs met, and the blame and complain game. And once you get over the honeymoon phase, right, then you're in the blame and complain power struggle phase. And hopefully we move out of that into more of this conscious relationship, right? And in conscious relationship, we understand that our partner's not doing anything to us, most of the time, and that we're experiencing, it's like an opportunity to experience through the lens of our trauma, through the lens of our childhoods, what parts might still need a little healing.
Yes, yes. And that's that opportunity, each interaction, whether it's like, again, with your partner, a friend, a parent, somebody that triggers you in traffic, each interaction has this potential to reveal where you are, like where you've done the work, where you're whole, and where you're still hiding from yourself. And that's sort of the shadow.
Yeah.
And
I
a
love
lot of that is really unconscious, of course.
and super uncomfortable, you know?
Super uncomfortable.
And I think, like, we mostly think about this in terms of our partnerships, our romantic partnerships, and when I love the work of the Imago Theory by, Harville Hendricks, wrote this beautiful book called Getting the Love You Want,
Mm,
and his Imago Theory of this, he's talking more about partnerships, romantic relationships, marriages, partnerships, how we, attract unconsciously, or we can kind of say, like, it's our soul contract, partners who have sort of a pattern match to our parents. Like our
mhm,
parents, each of our parents' relationship with us and our parents' relationship with each other. It's kind of this triangle. Your mom's relationship with you, your dad's relationship with you, your dad's relationship with your mom, like that
mhm,
triangle.
mhm,
And all these dynamics which get really downloaded into our subconscious as little kids, then we play out. We can't do anything about it when we're little. Then we marry partners who kind of are the best and worst of both of our parents,
mhm,
and provide us with a new opportunity to be in the same pattern, so we have the opportunity to work it through in a way we didn't when we were kids.
Yep, exactly. And I haven't read that book, but I fully agree that, it's, and to give examples, it's like if you were abandoned emotionally as a child, you could may unconsciously choose partners who are also emotionally unavailable to
Yep.
work that out. Or if you were praised as being like the good one or the good girl or the good boy, you might attract takers who rely on your
Your
overgiving.
goodness.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if you like fear rejection, you might choose people who just ghost you, who pull away and keep you at sort of at
Mhm.
arm's length. So we all
Right.
do this really, I think, unconsciously, until we shed light on it, bring awareness to it. It becomes conscious, and we can work on it to sort of, bring a full stop to that pattern.
Yeah. That's when like couples go to couples therapy or you go into therapy and you realize you really did marry your mom or your dad or aspects of both of your mom and your dad so that
Yeah.
and there is that moment where you're like I've been married twice, so the first time it was like super clear and the second time I was like, I'm not going to do that again. I'm just going to do the opposite. And I didn't. It was in a really different package, but it was the same energy and I'm like, how am I back here? Like how am I back
Right.
in the same dynamic? I consciously made a decision to choose a different dynamic and I'm still back here.
Yeah.
Um yeah.
And it's like it's just that what we don't heal, we recreate. So we might think that it's healed, but it's not. We're not recreating it because we're broken, but it's because our
Right.
system is literally seeking resolution.
Yeah.
And so it can be tricky. It's like, oh, I could have sworn that I I could have sworn that I
I did
figured it
I
out.
did swear that I picked something different. And it's that opportunity. I think this is why it's so good, like, you know, to do couples therapy because it's
Mm,
really hard to see those patterns on your own. I think it's impossible to. We need that outside source to kind of mirror to be the mirror in this opportunity. Like, do you see that maybe that this is what's going on? And you're like, oh, like they're so ingrained that sometimes we don't see it clearly. And that's why I think we have that pattern. You will repeat the pattern over and over and over until you do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, and it is that. And I think it's also, if you have enough awareness, you can find the patterns within yourself, or you can look like, oh, this is like, or you start noticing the questions, why do I always attract people who, make me feel invisible? Or
Mhm.
whatever it is. Why do I end up being the caretaker? And those questions are actually leading you to that mirror,
Right.
to reflect clearly what is happening, what you're continuing to to create, essentially.
Yeah, and it's not always the patterns of our parents, so often it is. So why am I always the caretaker? Well, I took care of my mom or I took care of my dad or my mom and dad were checked out, so I took care of my siblings,
Yeah.
like whatever it is, because it can also be dynamics that happen between our siblings
Yeah.
sometimes or even our early childhood, like our school years, like
Yeah.
what happened in school,
Yep.
so it's not always centered around the family, but so often it is.
Right. Yeah, I know, I see that too. And
Mm,
and it definitely could be friends. You just
yeah.
really wanted to be liked, and it might just be that you had that class where you just didn't click with anybody. And
Mhm.
so, you know, it's just, again, it's that awareness of looking at, of finding the patterns.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of liberation on this, front too, because conscious relationship is a whole different kettle of fish, and ideally in conscious relationship, what happens is we're like, you say to your partner, your partner does something and triggers you like crazy. And you
Yep.
go off in your own corner and you're like, oh my God, my nervous system just got totally jacked up. I'm going to do my breathing exercises. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to journal. I'm going to do some inner child stuff. And then you're like, okay, here's what happened. And then you go back to your partner and you're like, "Hey, just when you said X, Y, and Z, it totally sent me down my same old rabbit hole I always go down, and I just wanna share that with you because it was so painful, and I know it's not your fault, and I know, but because you're my person, I wanna tell you, like, what my experience was, and I'm gonna go work on that with my therapist." Like,
Yeah.
that's sort of so we stop projecting, we stop we don't stop projecting, but we catch the projection, and we do repair when we need to repair, and then we, sort of own up to our vulnerability and share that with our and I think that has or I have experienced that brings a whole new level of intimacy into our relationship, into our connection with people. We're really sharing deeply who we are. We're not you have to fix this or it's all your fault that you did that happened. We're just like, yeah, I just want to that's an ouchie spot for me and let me tell you about it.
Yeah. I think it's really key to notice, the practices, noticing these in real time, how you're
Mm,
being activated or, you know, triggered by someone, and asking, sort of having that. And this is, again, this is why it's called a practice, to be able to see that, and whether you feel it in your body, or you notice you're getting hot, or you start like speaking differently, or there's a different tone, understanding what your cues are, and then
yeah.
have the ability to be like, well, what is this revealing about me? Where do I feel unseen or unworthy or unlovable? And or what am I being asked to own and express and release? Really, what is this person showing me where I have
Mm,
essentially abandoned myself?
yeah.
um, and it takes work. You're trying, ultimately, we're when we stop trying to control the relationship and we start listening to this mirror that we're talking about, everything
Mm,
changes.
totally. One of my favorite books on this topic was written by a guy named David Schnarch. Funny last name. He wrote a book called Passionate Marriage. It's a big, thick book. It's like that thick. And he wrote it for therapists, so it's a bit, you know, from the lens of couple he wrote it for couples therapists, but he
Yeah.
he he talks about relate marriage as being a crucible, a people growing machine, and how there's just a certain kind of growth pattern, spiritual growth that we can't do in a vacuum, that we need relationships with other people, primarily our partnerships, but all kinds of relationships where it's sort of like territory we need to have that friction that other people provide in order to grow.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why we're all here, right? And it's also
Yeah.
a relationship with ourself. I mean, we can very much look at how we treat ourselves,
Mhm.
and how we talk to ourselves, and that's also a mirror.
Yeah.
We want to
What
talk about codependence. I know that was one of the topics, and it's a very specific kind of relationship, right?
mm,
Because I feel like at first glance, it can look like true love. It can feel like
yeah.
devotion and commitment and even like oneness.
Yep.
Uh, but underneath that, it's rooted in fear of often abandonment or rejection or loneliness or worthlessness. So I
Yeah.
feel like codependence really isn't connection, it's more like entanglement.
Yeah. Yeah, and codependence it's definitely a thing that, if you identify as an empath or a people pleaser, you're gonna have I mean, I think we all have codependent. I remember reading the book Codependency No More
Mhm.
years ago and, like, literally standing up and throwing the book across the room and, like, stomping up and down on it. It was like I had some choice words for that book, and and I was like, because I picked up the book and I'm like, "This is gonna be an easy read, so I don't have any codependent behaviors." And then I was like, "Oh, shoot." Like, I totally do. And I think that codependency is, it's like when you're not okay when somebody else is not like, your okayness depends on them being okay. I'm not
Yeah.
okay if you're not okay, so I'm gonna make you be okay so I can be okay. And that's that entanglement, that you were talking about. And the tricky thing about that is it doesn't allow the other person to be themselves, to grow, to take like to deal with the accountability of their actions,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's that shape shifting, and we sort of silence our own truth, and not because it's like we're being, I don't know, generous, but because we're scared.
Mhm.
It's always moving out of fear. Um,
Yeah.
it's like if I make them happy, they won't leave,
Yeah.
you know. Or if I give
Yeah.
more, maybe I'll be loved back.
Or if I'll let their bad behavior slide and not say anything and enable them, they won't leave.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can really
Yeah.
feel like love because you are getting something from it, but it's completely erasing self. Uh,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's not real intimacy, even though it can make you feel kind of like you're close to somebody, or like you're be like you
Right.
said, you're being loving, real intimacy. Um, and this was a really hard one for me to learn as like a card carrying empath and people pleaser. Um, I was like, "Oh, you're if I'm people pleasing, enabling codependence, and if I'm in the merge, the empathic merging myself with somebody else, I'm not it's not really if I'm not fully in me and I'm not myself and I'm not sovereign my own sovereignty isn't there, then there's no real intimacy. It's a weird kind of mergy intimacy, but the real intimacy you have to be inside your own self.
Yes. Yeah, and for
Yeah.
empaths it's so hard to understand because you know, we like seep our energy out so far and merge literally with other people's
Mhm.
energy. And that
Yeah.
feels like love. That feels like fulfilling. But of
Right.
course, as we know, it's actually quite draining and we completely lose our sense of self. And so it's really about, like you said, like being fully, well, having really clear boundaries and respect ourselves and our own, not only our own energy, but our self.
Yeah, and I think there's sort of like a I don't know how to say this exactly because it sounds too extreme what I'm gonna say, but there has to be always like a part of you that's willing to walk away from a relationship that's too dysfunctional, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and of course we wanna walk away from dysfunctional relationships, but if we're like, "I'm gonna save the relationship, no matter what, even if that means I totally have to sacrifice myself," that's not a good footing to stand on, you know? There I think to hold that sovereignty, there's kind of that inner knowing or inner like that line in the sand of like, nothing's more important than me. And
That's right.
that can seem really like, well, how then do you build a relationship if nothing's more important than you? But it's actually, I think, the foundation that it has to go on.
I totally agree. And when you actually have that that mindset, like I tend to my own needs before
Mhm.
asking anything from anybody, you actually have the same, again, this is the mirror. You have the exact same want or desire for your partner to tend to
Right.
their own needs.
Yeah.
And um and that becomes like the forefront, the first, the like what's most important in the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you don't have yourself, you can't really connect with other people.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
true, honest, deep connection. Yeah.
Hmm. Beautiful.
Um,
Um,
I feel like there were other topics.
what about becoming the source of love, safety, and approval, right? So if we're shifting the lens inward, right? Instead of chasing love, we're sourcing love. We're becoming that. We're the person who generates love. We are love. And I think that arises out of what we were just talking about, loving ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
And, like that sort of like don't chase anyone, like just um be that source of love, love yourself. And I think it always, when we talk about relationships, it always comes down to what everybody says. Sounds kind of trite. You have to love yourself, right?
Right.
But when we are loving ourselves, that's how we become the source of love, safety, and approval. We're okay because we said we were okay. We're
Yeah.
safe because we're creating safety for ourselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it's that it's that like radical act of sovereignty. And I
Yeah.
feel like some, especially now, because we're in such an interesting cultural climate, and it's like, well, community care needs to happen before even self-care. And I've been hearing that a lot lately, and I still just don't agree with that. I feel like once we understand our own sovereignty,
Mm,
and we're not chasing safety or approval or love from anybody else, including um, our community, then you know we're it's like a deep self responsibility. Then once we have that, we can bring that to the community, and I feel
mm.
like then it ripples out, and that's
Yeah, and if we say, like, even bring that a little closer to home, like, the community might be you and your partner, it might be you and your family, your
right.
kids, you know, then the wider community. But I
Yep.
think it all has to start with deep, deep loving. This is why I do inner child work, because inner child work, why I teach it, why I write about it, why I practice it myself every day. Because
Yep.
for me, inner child work has been the best way to love myself, you know, and to be really consistent with, like, am I okay? Wait a second, I'm not okay. What do I need in this moment? Maybe I
Yeah.
need, some emotional, validation. Maybe I need to talk to myself. Maybe I need a snack and a nap. Maybe I need, like, you know, I don't know, to call a friend and talk things out, like, but caring for myself, that's how I learned how to stop self-abandoning, was to do just a ton. I've been doing inner child work every day for 25 years,
Yeah.
and it's so core to my own practice and to the work that I'm bringing into the world.
Yep. Same. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's at the forefront of everything that I do, and why I feel like, I can be in a healthy relationship. And
Mhm.
I feel, and with that, it's like it's the illusion that someone or something outside of us can like finally make us feel safe or enough, or um,
Mhm.
any of that. But the truth is, there's no external source that can fill any internal void.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, even after a relationship may end, um, you still feel empty or anxious or waiting for the other shoe to drop, is because um, we need to validate our own worth before anyone else does. And we need to create
Yeah.
safety in our bodies and boundaries, and nobody else can do that for us,
I
Um,
know, we so want it to come from the outside. Like,
yeah,
your inner child, my inner child wants it to come from the outside. We
totally.
want mommy and daddy to do that part, and that we look for that in our partners. It's like, I don't feel loved unless you do this thing, and
Yeah.
I think I think we have to do that. And I would say the one thing I would add to what you said is, I feel like there's two sources. There's me loving me, and then there's the divine source. So
Yes.
tapping into divine love, you know, whether you're connecting with your angels or you're going straight to God, straight to the G man himself,
Yeah.
um, or G woman, I guess we could go both ways. The divine mother, divine father, right?
Mhm. Yep.
It's that's like the real thing. That's the
Yeah.
real source. And I think that's why, spiritual practice can be super valuable, or, that's a source you can tap that's never really going to let you down.
Absolutely. And honestly,
Yeah.
that's something, even, you know, self love I talk about a lot. Um,
Yeah.
but the truth is, it's like God is closer to you than you are to yourself. And
Yeah.
so when you stop chasing that external and return to your center, you really stop leaking that energy outwards,
Mm.
um, and you come to that really truly grounded place. And that grounded place is when you realize that, you know you're not separate from the divine. um,
Well,
and the
are there
beauty
some
is, oh, go ahead.
are there some practices, Jane? Like, I know you love the practical app. And are there practices that we can share that you can share that help people do that?
Yeah. I mean, to I think that the first of all, the awareness, like the practice of being aware of your bodily sensations, right? So just
Yep.
like I was talking about, if somebody quote unquote makes you mad, which really is impossible. Nobody can make you mad. You're feeling mad, and that's great, but like I'm feeling mad. You're not making
Mm,
me do anything.
mm,
And so feel that like the sensation of the heat, or what does mad feel like in your body? Where do you feel mad? You know, I feel like a gut punch, or I feel like itchy skin.
mm,
And learning how to become aware of your body's sensations, I find to be like number one,
mm,
you know, and then the awareness of it. And this takes time. This is a practice. It's not going to happen right away because we're so ingrained to sort of react. It's like I
yeah.
feel hot. I want the hot to go away, and I'm going to like move the energy of anger out of my body and like project it onto whoever's in front of me. And that's a really common response, right?
Yep.
But the healed version of that, or the because anger's not the problem either. Anger's
Mm,
fantastic because
mm,
it's creation, and every
mhm,
emotion has a purpose. It's like that anger creates action. Okay, so
mm.
where can I move that to something else instead of my partner or my child, or the guy who just flipped me off? It's like I could use that energy in a much more resourceful way. Um,
Kickboxing class.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Hitting a pillow, I mean, even just like screaming, or like turning on some rage music and like it's
Mm,
all good. It's all good, and
yeah.
it's just the energy that wants to move. Um, because and I think the key is not to like squash it down and hold it in your body.
Right.
Um, And then I think devotional practices, um, devotion to sort of everything, devotion to life, devotion, like life as a ceremony, devotion to, how we, our nightly routine of how we clean our face, whatever it is, and
Mhm.
devotion to our partner, devotion to our kids. I find that that's a really good practical tool that can be hard if that's a hard one. Okay, why is this hard? What don't I have? What is this not
Yeah.
fulfilling? What what's keeping me from being devoted to my life? You know?
I think the other thing that's really I'm gonna add a practice in there is
Yeah.
that we all need, like, communication skills. And I think going to couples therapy, even if you only do like 6 sessions or a few sessions, so that you and your partner can, or we with our partners can be on the same page about communicating. How do we bring up conflict? How do we fight fair? How do we make sure there's rules? Like, if you were going to build a house, you need a plan and hammers and nails and stuff. And most of us don't have tools, or we don't have the same tools. Like we have a different 2 different plans, 2 different sets of tools. And so making sure we're on the same page, and we have some skills and knowledge around how to deal with tricky stuff, how to, deal with conflict. I like the nonviolent conflict,
Yeah.
nonviolent communication protocol.
Totally.
It can be a little unwieldy, but it's good to learn. And, you know, reflective listening. This is what I heard you since you go to couples therapy. This is what they do. In there,
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, you say what you say, and you say blah blah blah, and then they ask your partner, what did Lisa say, and
Mm-hmm.
partner gets it all wrong, and then you go back and forth until your partner gets it. These kind of, I think, foundational skills that really should be taught in like third grade, but
Totally.
never are, really hardly
Yeah.
ever are. Wouldn't
Yeah.
say never, but I think that, if we all could communicate, if we all could calm down our nervous system, if we
Mm-hmm.
all could regulate our nervous system, regulate our emotions, and have good communication skills, I think we'd be better
Yeah.
off.
I completely agree. There's so many great resources out there. And
Yeah.
ultimately, when you're willing to like sit in the fire. This is the flame metaphor. Sit in the fire of your own truth, to be really
Yep.
honest with yourself, which is that awareness. And you become capable of witnessing someone else's truth too and not needing to change it.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's real deep
Yeah,
intimacy
I
with
love that.
yourself and with others. So,
So good.
yeah, yeah.
Hi, Angela. Angela said hi. I'm saying hi back, Angela. So nice to see your beautiful face here. But we're just about ready to wrap up here. This half an hour went by so quick.
So quick.
And and we just want to give a pitch to our mystery school, Quantum Mystic Mystery School, starting really, really soon, end of the month. And we're taking in new people for our first year. So super exciting. So visit us at quantummystic.com if you want to stop by, if you want to find out more about that. And I just want to thank you all so much for being here, for being a part of this conversation, and Jane for coming up with this topic. Let's Jane's been killing it on the topic, so thank you for that, Jane.
Absolutely. Always fun. Such a great platform to for us to get to sit and chat and if there's any topics that anybody wants, please let us know. You can just let us know.
Yeah,
We would love that.
absolutely. And thank you. We know you're gonna reach right over and hit that subscribe button so that we're on YouTube. Joanne's watching on YouTube. Thank you, Joanne. That's so kind of you to watch on YouTube. We know you're gonna hit that subscribe button, so because we do this every week, every other week.
Mm-hmm.
And we're laying down some pretty good wisdom. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll be here. Oh, and Dominique is here too. Hi, Dominique. Um, and yeah, just thanks for joining the conversation, and we'll see you all again pretty soon. And thanks, Jane, as always.
Thank you, Lisa. Bye, everybody.